right, so we are going to discuss periods. A period is two phrases that are paired together to make a stronger, conclusive phrase. So it would be like speaking and saying a sentence that is, I am going to the store. But in terms of music, this makes much more sense than the English language does. So the first phrase that we have is called the antecedent phrase. The second phrase we have is the consequent phrase. That's all a lot of stuff that are the technical terms, but here is what we are really concerned with. The melodic component of the period and the harmonic component of the period. There are two flavors of melodic that we must deal with and four flavors of harmonic that we have to deal with. As far as melodic goes, there is parallel phrases, and this means that your antecedent phrase and your consequent phrase have similar melodic material. Contrastingly, contrasting phrases will have differing melodic material. You must be the judge to decide whether it is parallel or contrasting. This is for your analysis purposes. Harmonic, we have interrupted, which means that your first phrase will end, your antecedent phrase will end with a half cadence, and then continue on to be a whole new phrase. Your second option is sectional, which means your antecedent phrase will end with an imperfect authentic cadence. Continuous means antecedent ends with a half cadence or an authentic cadence, but then when phrase 2 begins, your consequent phrase, the harmonic structure is not tonic when it begins, but it will end with a perfect authentic cadence on tonic. Progressive is the really wacky one. It is when the antecedent phrase ends with a half cadence or an imperfect authentic cadence. Then when consequent starts, it can continue in the realm of tonic, but it ends, the end of the phrase is not tonic. I think this applies more to modulation, but I suppose it might work with if you ended on a half cadence, maybe. But I'm not sure if that's what good old Late's book is pushing for. So, that's the disclaimer. How do we show what a period is? We must draw one Jagudo arc that represents the music that we are analyzing. Draw a series of two smaller arcs within the mega arc that represent the antecedent phrase and the consequent phrase. Then we label with lovely measure numbers. And because this is basic and examples, we are going to stick with 4-bar phrases. You could write 1 through 4. You can say that this is measure 5 through 8. You can shift these around as long as it makes sense and it is clear as to what your labels mean. If your labels leave any room for confusion, it's not clear. Okay, so we have some weird shape we're making with some numbers. This is where we plug in the music and say what is what. Phrase A, antecedent, is going to be called A, no matter what. Trust me. Phrase B, if it is similar and not or the second phrase rather, if it is similar and not exactly the same but close enough, like few notes are different, you would call it A prime. This little apostrophe following the A means the word prime. And it means it's similar but not quite. If it's totally different, we would call it B, phrase B. So if it was another A or A prime, it would be parallel. This is all concerning melodic material. If it was AB, it would be contrasting. Now harmony, we usually start on tonic, assuming we're in a major key, we did a capital, but tonic, we go somewhere, let's say we go to 5, and then we start back over at 1 for phrase B, and then end with a perfect authentic cadence. Let's change this. That, okay, so using everything that I just explained, if the letters describing the phrases are A and A prime, it must be what, class? Parallel. Good. Everybody saying it all at once. And if we look at the harmonic structure and see that we have tonic, and then we end our phrase on dominant, what type of cadence would we have?
Half cadence.
A half cadence. I will label a half cadence there. We look at our choices, multiple choice, how many of these end the first phrase with a half cadence as an option?
And one of them is sectional.
So it cannot be sectional. We've decided it is parallel. We will write up here. Not sectional. Okay, let's continue and look some more. And we see that we have traveled harmonically 1, 5, 1 with a perfect authentic cadence. What could it be? Could it be continuous? Yes or no?
No.
No. Why a volunteer? Would it be no, Andres?
Because that phrase starts with a tonic and continues.
Cannot have that. So yes, it must, even though it ends with a perfect authentic cadence, the beginning of this phrase, begins with tonic. So it can't be continuous. So now we have two options, 50-50. Is it progressive or interrupted? Andres again. It's interrupted and not progressive, because if it were progressive, it would end on not tonic. So, process of elimination reveals that we have a parallel, interrupted, 2 R's, parallel, interrupted. We need one more word to complete a label, because parallel, interrupted doesn't mean anything. Period, exactly. Very good. So parallel, interrupted, period, which you will label up top, preferably in a straight line across the top, like a nice label would be. This is all of the know-how. Let's do some practice identifying what all of this means with your ears and your brains. I am going to play for you an example, and I would like you to map it out in your notebooks. So do all the prep work of, you know I'm going to play you some type of period. You can draw the big arc and the 2 little arcs. I want you to figure out if the phrases are parallel or contrasting. I want you to figure out what the harmonic structure is. Okay? This is a Mozart example from the textbook. I will butcher. About how poor that performance was. No, we will discuss what we did. Let's do it on a different board. In a different color, as we like colors. Okay. So, step 1. draw a giant arc. Step 2, draw 2 smaller arcs. Now, let us talk about melodic material first. First one, we know what we're going to call it A. The second one, are we going to call it A prime, or B?
A.
A prime is the correct answer. So, knowing this much information, can we decide whether the melodic material is parallel or contrasting?
It's parallel.
It is parallel. Good. Let's move on to the harmonic element. Started on tonic. In the beginning, this was an 8-bar phrase again. 1, 4, 5, 8. Okay. What happened at the end of the first phrase before we began the second phrase? Can anybody hear what happened? Tyler.
It wasn't a half cadence. I think it was an imperfect authentic.
You think it was a perfect authentic? Imperfect authentic cadence.
Think.
I will
Keywording think.
I will play the first half again,
That leads me to believe I'm incorrect.
and we shall see if you have the same thoughts again. It's a half cadence. We all heard that now, I hope. I know that we have a half cadence here, so it must have ended on 5. That's what a half cadence means. Okay, so knowing this much, we have now ruled out, as before, sectional from our 4 types of harmonic choices. Sectional is out. We have interrupted, continuous, and progressive left. Let us look at the second phrase and figure out what happened. Did phrase 2 begin with tonic?
Yes.
Yes, we heard that much. It didn't start anywhere else. Did it end with some type of authentic cadence, or a half cadence, or
I would say authentic.
something
I'm
else?
not sure which authentic thing
So you would say some sort of authentic cadence. That's good. I'm going to rate that lower so it all makes sense. Okay, so if it was some type of authentic cadence, we know that it ended with some type of 1 and had some type of dominant, let's say a 5, going to the 1. Sorry?
It's Mozart, of course.
Yes, of course it's Mozart. So this, with some type of authentic cadence at the end in a tonic key, is going to rule out progressive. So we have continuous and interrupted left. We don't really even need to do any more work to figure out what type of harmonic component is needed, because continuous says that we don't begin with tonic here. So we know that this is a parallel interrupted what?
Period.
Yes. And you label it up top and make it pretty. Good. All right. So now, time permits, we'll play for you 2 more examples, and you will try and tell me what their construction is. They happen to fit this scenario. You'll use your brains and process of elimination to figure out everything.
Science.
Oh, science, yes. All right. Example 1.